Hi everybody, welcome. Hope you all had a good weekend. It's lovely to be back here Monday morning, and we are going to be here all week is the plan, with Kyra Lingo, who's joining us again. So welcome to you again, Kyra. Thanks for joining us again this week.
Thank you, Caroline.
Great to see you all logging on, and we noticed there were a couple of people, someone from California and someone from the west coast of Canada, who are obviously staying up late at night. So welcome to you. Thank you for making the effort to stay up so late. I know some of you would like to know what's happening with Martin. We've not actually heard anything since Friday. So as far as we're aware, he is still just resting up at home and recovering. So there's not really any more updates about him. But if we do hear anything during the week, we'll let you know. So we're here for an hour. We will be starting with 10 or 15 minutes of reflection, then going into a guided meditation, and then the last 10-15 minutes or so is your opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. If you would like to come on screen and ask a question, so it will look much like it does now with both of us on screen, you're very welcome to do that. Just write a message in the sidebar and I can bring you on at a time that seems to make sense, assuming the tech all works. But I did manage to get somebody on Caverly Morgan's session on Friday, so it seems to maybe be working a little better at the moment. The other way that you can come on screen is the other way you can ask a question is to put it in writing, of course. Just use the ask a question box underneath the video screen. You'll see it says ask a question there. If you click on that, there's a pop-up box and you can put your question in there, and Kyra can see those and answer them as they come up. I'd also like to mention donations, or Dana. We rely on your generosity to keep bringing these sessions to you every day. We do have ongoing costs. We have to pay for this platform that we're using to bring the session to you. We have to pay for all the software we use to run various aspects of the business. We have to pay for our accountant. We have to pay for the website hosting. So there's several ongoing costs that we need to meet, and we can only do this if people contribute. So if you're able to give anything, if you can afford to give anything at all, we'd be really, really grateful. You can donate by using the offer donation /Dana button, which is right underneath the video again there. And there'll be a few options presented to you for donation. And half of your donation will also go towards supporting Kyra. So many thanks in advance for anything that you can give. It's very, very gratefully received. And I'm now going to take myself off and hand you all over to Kyra.
Thank you, Caroline. Greetings, everyone. I just want to check that you can hear me all right. We had an echo earlier with just Caroline and I. Is the sound coming in all right? Great. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you. So also wanted to warmly welcome some friends who are joining from Colombo, Sri Lanka today. I think that's a first. So we're in the same country as I'm calling in from Sri Lanka also. So welcome everyone. Today we'll be focusing on the practice of resting back and trusting the unknown. And I think there's a lot of us, probably all of us, are dealing with some measure of uncertainty in this time of pandemic. And this can, of course, be a very uncomfortable place to be when we want to know what's going on and what's going to happen and how things are going to play out. When is something going to happen? We don't know what's, not necessarily going back to normal, but when will our lives resume in some way the way they were? So, of course, this is also a difficult place to be in our own personal lives in general, right? When we're waiting to hear back about some diagnosis and we don't know what the reality is yet about our health or a loved one's health, or there's so many ways that we're left in places of unknown in our daily life, pandemic or not. So it can be a place of a lot of fruitful practice to hang out there, to learn how to hang out there and get friendly with this unknown. So many of you will know that I spent 15 years as a nun in the Plum Village community of Thich Nhat Hanh, who we call Thai, which means teacher in Vietnamese. And often people would bring questions to Thai in the question and answer time about what to do facing big life decisions and maybe choosing which career path to take, or whether to separate or stay with their partner, or whether to ordain as a monastic, whether to move here or move there. And Thai would answer these deep kind of intense life questions, often saying it's good not to try to figure this out in our minds through our thinking, that our thinking doesn't actually help us to find wisdom and to really hear the deepest insight that's in us. But actually, when we think, pros and cons, and what if this, and but then that might happen, or what if I do this way and then this might happen, we get very tired and maybe more confused and more anxious. It doesn't mean there's no role for thinking. Thinking can be productive. But often when we try to figure something out just through our thinking, we wind up, tying ourselves up in knots or running in circles. So that's also my experience, that these deeper life questions, and even maybe the questions we're sitting with now in this time of pandemic, they can't be resolved at the level of the mind, but they need to be entrusted to a deeper part of our consciousness. And so Thai, when he would be asked these questions, would ask people to consider this question as a seed that we plant in the soil of our mind and let it rest there. So we assess what the question is, and then we entrust it to our own deeper wisdom. And then how we take care of it is through our daily practice of mindfulness, our awareness in each of our activities. That's like the sunshine and the water that nourishes the seed, so that one day it will sprout and rise up on its own in its own time. And we'll know the answer to our question quite clearly and without any doubt. But the challenge is to leave the seed down in the soil of our mind and not keep digging it up to see if it's growing roots and, if it's coming up yet, because it won't grow that way, right? We know this. So it's the same with our troubling, you know, very close to our heart, big life questions, or anything we're just trying to find some answer to that's somehow confusing. So we ask our deeper consciousness to take care of this seed, this question, and we let go as much as we can of our thinking and worrying about what will happen. And then in our daily lives, we come back to this practice of calming, resting, coming home to ourselves in the present moment. And all this is the best compost, the best nourishment for this seed to ripen naturally and authentically. And this process can't be rushed or forced. It can take weeks, it can take months, it can take years. But we can trust that the seed is down there and one day it will sprout up into a clear answer. This can be really hard. I know from my own experience, because we may really want to know the answer and we may need to know the answer. And we may find ourselves very insecure and fearful if we don't know what to do, if we don't know which path to choose. And we worry that we may make the wrong choice, and we catastrophize what will happen if we get it wrong. But this kind of worry and fear makes it very hard to find our way. It's actually a big obstacle. When we notice that we're doing this, we can recognize, this is worry, this is fear, and stop. We can notice this isn't going to help me to find my way. So we pause, we can breathe in, breathe out, returning to this moment. And we find some kind of solidity, some kind of home inside of us. Even without knowing the answer, we can still find some peace in the present moment. And that's what's going to help us find our way, is when we come back to our center. And if we let the wisdom in us come through, which all we need to do is return to the present moment in order to make that more accessible, then it will be available to us if we let go of trying to figure out the future in our heads. So some years ago, I was trying to figure out if I should stay in the monastery or leave. After spending pretty much my whole adult life as a nun from age 25 to 40, I attended several silent retreats, 3 months silent retreats at the Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts. And I did this several years in a row, either 6 weeks or 3 months. It was a really important, helpful time that allowed me to come back to myself and just let my own consciousness take its time to find the way. So when I decided to ordain when I was 25, in my heart I was making a life commitment. So it was painful and confusing to find myself questioning this vow that I just assumed would carry me through my whole life. And in that time of transition, it was very uncomfortable, because I didn't know who I was. I was leaving this one identity that had held me for many years. It was all I knew, and I had no idea what was coming. At times I felt like, I'm just going to die if I leave what I know. I mean, it was that kind of really profound fear of the unknown. So it was like being in a process of the caterpillar that dissolves and in the chrysalis and uh, is this soup, not knowing what's the next shape it's going to take, until one day it becomes a butterfly. But it was terrifying and very hard when I really wanted answers and clarity, and I was used to having some kind of ground underneath me that wasn't there. So I remember going to the interview with my teacher at that time. Joseph Goldstein was one of my interview teachers. And I shared just how distressing it was to not know. And he mentioned Alan Watts' book, The Wisdom of Insecurity. I might have mentioned it already on one of our calls. But it points out that when we're clear and sure of where we're going, what we're doing, there's not the possibility for anything else to come in. But if we can be, if we are in this place of not knowing, anything is possible. And so when we let ourselves just rest back and hang out in this space of not knowing, there's enormous potential of what could happen. Life could unfold in innumerable ways. So rather than avoid and fear this place of uncertainty, we can embrace it. We can see it as something precious. So my experience on these 3-month retreats was, I didn't find an answer to my dilemma of whether to disrobe or continue as a nun. But what I did find was the ability to dwell more and more comfortably in the not knowing. So I learned to allow this seed of my question. Can you hear me now? Great. So, yes, so I learned to allow this seed of my question to rest in the deeper layers of my consciousness. I was able to touch joy and well-being in the midst of not knowing, in the midst of awkwardness and confusion. And I learned to let go of fear and resistance right in the midst of dissolving and losing my identity. It was a real practice of surrender. So, by slowing down and choosing to rest back into the uncertainty rather than fighting it, rather than trying to lean in and push into the future, I was able to touch a sense of space precisely in moments when it felt like there was no way to keep going and I would be totally overwhelmed. So when we can breathe in and breathe out and put our mind completely on our breathing, we can create that kind of space inside of us. When we slow things down, when we let our nervous system recalibrate, recenter, we can take a very different relationship to what's going on. So the external situation may not change. There may not be any more security, any more ground. But inside, we've changed and we've found a way to cultivate that for ourselves. And so if we can stop, if we can come back and rest in what's right here, what's right now, we have the chance to touch into something deeper than that overwhelm, that fear, that insecurity. And so this pausing, this stopping, this coming back, it's what helps the seed of our question mature and ripen into the guidance, into the direction that we need. So we'll get to practice this together. So finding a comfortable position, whether it's seated or standing or lying down. Really finding a restful position that also supports you to be present and show up with dignity. So connect with your body and how it's making contact with whatever you're sitting, standing, lying on. And allowing yourself to rest back in some way, either in your mind or in your body, and begin to feel the support of whatever is holding you. Breathing in, feeling your body. Breathing out, letting your body rest even more into the support of the earth. Allow your face to soften, releasing the forehead, the muscles around your eyes, letting go in the jaw, letting the tongue rest in the mouth. Being aware of the shoulders. And as you breathe out, let the shoulders soften. And bring attention to the chest and the belly, allowing them to release and soften on the next exhale. Notice your arms and your hands. With the next exhale, let them grow a little heavier, releasing tension, finding ease. And then feel your legs and feet. And as you exhale, release, soften, let go. Feel your whole body now as you inhale and exhale, allowing the whole body to soften and release its weight even more onto the earth. Resting, releasing, knowing that the earth has you, has your back. The earth is really here for you, and you can trust that you have this support. There's nothing you have to do in this moment. There's nowhere else you need to be. Letting yourself let go of any striving, needing to become something else. Let yourself be just as you are, right here, right now. And sensing into that space that's inside of you. That groundedness, that center, that can find itself even when the world outside is not very solid or reliable, when we don't know what's going to happen. open to the possibility that there's something inside of you that can handle that. That is rooted and able to be with uncertainty. Kind of like a cat, if it sort of falls from some place high, it can land on its feet. That ability to land on your feet. So bring to mind whatever question you might be sitting with in this moment, or some challenge. It may be the question of, what is my life going to be like after the lockdown, or after society opens up again. Whatever might be troubling you, or something you're trying to figure out, to work with. Just let it arise in your mind. And without trying to figure out an answer or a solution right in this moment, visualize this question, this challenge, as a seed that you're entrusting to the soil of your mind, down in the depths of your mind. And let this seed of your concern, of your question, of your uncertainty, let it lay there peacefully and quietly in this place where you've planted it. Letting yourself rest back into the unknown. While it may be scary to not know, there's also infinite possibility here. Taking a few deep breaths. Staying connected to your body. Letting your body continue to settle and be present. As you give the seed permission to take all the time it needs to ripen into an answer. Trust your own consciousness to show you the way when the time is right. Let yourself rest. Let yourself be. And if you notice you're thinking and worrying and fear kicking in as you try to figure out this difficulty, see if you can return to what's here and now. Your breath, your body, the sounds around you, body sensations. There is a space of patience in you. Let yourself open to that. A part of you that's able to trust, that has confidence that life will unfold and that you'll know when you need to know. Almost like you're laying back in a hammock, and this hammock is the hammock of trust. And it's well secured to two strong trees with strong rope. And you can let yourself lay back and swing back and forth in this hammock of trust, of patience, of confidence. It's not up to you right now to figure this out. It's going to figure itself out and let you know. See if you can let go of the need to do it yourself and on any kind of timeline. Letting this hammock just hold you. You will have what you need when you need it. Connecting with this deep strength inside of you that's able to bear this time of uncertainty. That's able to be immensely patient and still. A place in you that knows The flower can't be rushed into blooming. It blooms in its own time when the conditions are sufficient. Let yourself rest back into this place of silence, of stillness, trusting in the inner wisdom that has its own timing. So we'll sit quietly for a few minutes. Some wisdom from Lao Tzu. Do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving till the right action arises by itself? I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. Lie die da die la da die die da die la da die die da die die da die. Lie die da die la da die die da die la da die die da die die da die. So we'll gently begin to transition, taking some deep breaths if that's helpful. Gently opening your eyes if you had them closed. whatever stretch you'd like to do, if that's helpful. And we'll come back to the screen. And so we have some time for questions, for discussion. You can share in the chat if you like any reflections on that practice. You like to hear the song again? Okay, I'll sing it with you. Feel free to join in. The words are, I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. Okay. I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. I cannot add more days to my life, but only more life to each day. Lai dai da dai, la da dai dai da dai, la da dai dai da dai dai da dai. Lai dai da dai, la da dai dai da dai, la da dai dai da dai dai da dai. So you have a question from Annie. What if when there is uncertainty, but a choice has to be made soon, do we just be with that decision and relax into it? Yes, very good question. So sometimes we do need to make decisions quickly. But sometimes we have some kind of pressure pushing us to make a decision quicker than is actually needed. So it's also important to distinguish when that's happening, when we're telling ourselves we don't have time, but actually we might have more time. Sometimes, for instance, I'll get an email asking if I can, do something, or am I willing to, and it feels like I have to make a decision. And sometimes if I'm not ready to make a decision, I might write back and say, well, when do you need an answer by? As I might need to weigh in other things in order to make a good decision about what they're asking me. And it might be that I can ask for more time. If they say, oh, we need you to make a decision by this Friday or something, I might say, is it possible for me to take the weekend? Or so one place to look is to see, is it possible to have more time to make the decision? And sometimes it simply isn't. And we do need to decide quickly. And then, all of our practice is to support us to have access to presence, access to this place in us that is more unperturbed by the whirling around us. So even in a time where we have to act very quickly, like times of danger, you need to act very quickly. You can't sit there and think, well, what should I do? You just have to do something. But the more we practice, the more we befriend our fear, and the more we're able to even in times of duress or times when we have to make a decision quickly under pressure, we can still have access to that clarity and not be pushed by fear or by, anger, or, not go into reactivity and have our quick decision come out of reactivity, but come out of deeper wisdom. So, as much as we can, even in a tight spot where we have to decide quickly, as much as we can, just what you said in your question, that sense of finding some place of stability inside that can direct that action, that can direct where, so we know where our decision is coming from. And it's helpful, I find, when I'm faced with sometimes like difficult to make decisions, is to like check in with what my intention is. Like, where is this? If the first thing that comes up is, no, I don't want to do this, or yes, I want to do that, or this is what I should do, I try to just check in and be like, well, where is that coming from? Is that coming from a place of insecurity? Is that coming from a place of greed, from lack, from jealousy, from, being insecure about myself? And again, it's not always possible with the time to know where it's coming from, but generally my sense is that, from my experience, when I'm coming from a clear, wiser place inside, I feel that in my body, and there's a settled, confident feeling when I am operating and making a decision. But if it's coming from a more reactive place, my body can feel much more unsettled, right? So I think, if you can, even if you have to make a decision quickly, going into your body and really feeling what your body feels can give a lot of indication of the, whatever way we want to go, or where we're coming from in our, response. And that is something that I've found, other people have helped me with, and I've shared this same practice with others that's been helpful for them, is when they're thinking of, say you have two options. I know it's not always that simple. Sometimes there's more than two options, but you can visualize yourself doing one and notice how your body feels when you picture yourself in that situation as fully as you can. And then you visualize yourself in the other the other option, and you feel, what would my body feel like in that situation? And sometimes that can give a really clear, this is what I need to do, because the body really responds, oh, this is what makes most sense. So I hope that's responded to your question, Annie. And then Mercedes has I think a request about having the meditations be longer, like more like 30 minutes instead of 20. Thank you for that feedback, and I'm sure we can accommodate that. Yeah. Thank you, Mercedes. And this is from Sue. I've noticed that a lot more people are using alcohol as a way of managing this uncertainty. Could you talk a bit about working with the desire to use alcohol because it is effective at easing the fear of uncertainty? Asking for a friend. Sure. Thank you. It's a really important question. And I think it is a very common, and probably becoming more common for many of us in these times. So alcohol is a depressant. It down-regulates, and as I understand it, and so it kind of numbs us, and keeps us from feeling that edginess of, oh, we don't know what's going to happen, and that's really uncomfortable. And so it can provide, some relaxation or some diversion, some not having to feel. And I think it's important not to judge or blame ourselves or others if that's the route that we're taking to handle the edginess. I think it's important to have compassion for the fact that there is this underlying uneasiness that is there, and that that's real suffering. And so, if we find ourselves or those we love turning to alcohol, especially in these times, I think it's important to have compassion for the fundamental suffering that's underneath that. And we need to ask ourselves, if we're practitioners, is this an effective strategy? It works for a time, but does it work in a, comprehensive sense? And, we know alcohol wears off after some hours, and then the uneasiness is still there, and it's important to check out, is it even bigger after taking alcohol? Sometimes the strategies we use to medicate ourselves, to tone down the difficulties of our lives, inadvertently end up making those difficulties even worse, even more intense. Because we might do and say things when we're under the influence of alcohol that, we regret, or that we feel badly about after the fact. I'm aware, many people are capable of drinking in moderation, and they may, be very at ease with taking a drink or so. And for them, it doesn't affect their behavior. But as it becomes a habit, we also know that the more you do it, the more you need in order to have the same effect. So, if it's every day, after a few weeks, you may need 2 drinks to have the same effect that 1 drink had. So all that's important to just investigate. Like, does this really work to help? Am I, whatever reason I'm taking it for, to help with this uncertainty, does it really actually make me more able to be with the uncertainty, not just while I'm drinking, but after I'm no longer drinking? And if not, if we find that that's not the case, then it might be good to inquire, well, what are some other ways that I could hang out with this uncertainty that might be more effective than drinking? And, I think if people drink mindfully, and it's, in a wholesome social context of connecting with others, and it's not to avoid something else, that's a different thing. There are those situations that could happen, but if we know we're taking alcohol to avoid a particular experience, it doesn't generally tend to really address the ultimate underlying reason why we're going to drink anyway from the beginning. So let's look at how to really address the root of our suffering. And it's possible to turn toward the uncertainty rather than to try to get away from it by distracting ourselves or numbing ourselves through drink. It's possible to bring curiosity and tenderness and care to our uncertainty, as we did in this meditation. And that's actually the way to address it at its root. And I mentioned this, I think, last week. I was listening to a talk by John McCransky, who's offering a course at the the Barry Center for Buddhist Studies. And he was saying that the root of all fear is the fear of our own emotions. And if we can learn to be with our emotions, we can move through all of our fear. So the opportunity to practice with uncertainty is very precious. If we can turn toward it, we can, we can find liberation from all suffering. So, I think I have addressed all the questions. So thank you all so much for coming to practice today and joining us from all the different places you've joined us from. And really appreciate the depth of the questions and very much appreciate your practice. So we'll see each other again, hopefully tomorrow or sometime this week. Be well.